Why am I being detained, sir?
Suspicious activity.
Photography cannot be used.
You and I are going to go around in a circle.
No,
okay?
sir. Please let me
Could
finish.
I have your ID?
I don't have an ID.
You don't have an ID?
No. Sorry, I can't hear you.
This is a federal facility. You can't take a picture of a federal facility, ma'am.
Is that a law?
Yes, it is, ma'am.
What law is that?
I just told you what it was. It's a federal law.
So that is my job, because you and I both know, and I'll just be blunt about it, okay? Terrorism.
Terrorism.
Oh yeah, that's code 440 of place west of Central. Suspects in custody.
Today, we're unpacking a gripping video where an auditor stands their ground, confidently asserting their First Amendment rights while filming a federal facility. Trust me, this is a must-watch lesson on how to legally and effectively exercise your rights under U.S. law. Let's dive in.
Hey, whoa!
Sorry? Sorry, I can't hear you.
This is a federal facility. You can't take a picture of a federal facility, ma'am.
Is that a law?
Yes, it is, ma'am.
What law is that?
I just told you what it was.
Out here to kind of prove that point, or are you out here for a legitimate purpose? I don't really understand what you're doing, okay? Because I told you I don't want you monitoring traffic patterns coming in and out of the FAA. Hold on, let me finish, okay?
Sure.
Let me finish, okay? And I get that.
Okay, go ahead.
But I'm not just a person with a gun. I'm.
May I ask you a question?
Sure.
Am I breaking any laws?
I'm out here because this is suspicious and is causing alarm to the people inside.
Simply recording a public building from a public space doesn't meet that threshold. Alexa knows this. And she was seen in the video making it clear, am I breaking any laws? When the officer can't provide a specific answer, it highlights the importance of knowing your rights.
Facility.
May I also say that it is not your concern what my business is photographing. It is none of your business what I am doing in public as long as a lawful act.
Okay. I understand what you're trying to do out here today, and I can appreciate that, all right? The issue is, it is my job, and it is my concern, because I need to maintain the safety of the facility. It's an FAA facility. You're aware of that. You're aware that it's a secure facility, okay? So that is my job, because you and I both know, and I'll just be blunt about it, okay? Terrorism.
Any point?
Well, no, now you're being detained because I need to dispel my concern about what you're doing here.
Why am I being detained, sir?
Suspicious activity.
Photography cannot be used.
You and I are going to go around in a circle.
No,
okay?
sir. Please let me finish.
Could I have your ID?
I don't have an ID.
You don't have an ID?
No.
Okay. Can you give me your name?
No.
You're not going to give me your name?
No, because photography cannot be used.
Are you from around here?
Sir.
Yeah.
Are you a sergeant, sir?
No.
Could I please request a sergeant, because with all due respect, you are incorrect.
I'm not.
Yes, sir.
No. What am I incorrect about?
About the fact that photography can be used as suspicion of a crime.
So here's the deal, all right? I don't know what you're
it's
telling me.
It's none of your business what I'm doing.
It is. Okay.
I'm in public.
That our rights are worth defending.
So what I would like to do, again, I understand what you're trying to do, and I can appreciate that, okay? But you obviously got to understand, at the end of the day, I got to do my job too, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So what I would ask, all right, to make sure that this isn't like a prowling or a federal offense, like I told you, I got to document this, okay? And if you're doing nothing wrong, then great, okay? Would you be able to give me your name so I can just properly document this? That way, if you're doing nothing wrong, it'll reflect that, and then we can just go about our way. Well,
I was on the public easement.
You were on the public easement.
Correct.
You're not on their property. So we're good there. They're trying to figure out if there's like a federal law or something like that that's going on.
Okay.
So, obviously, as long as you stay on the public property,
yep,
you're fine, okay? As of right now. They're their own federal regulations, rules and regulations, so that's what they're trying to uphold.
Right.
if you're doing what you're supposed to be doing and you're not doing anything wrong, what I would like to do is I'd like to document that. One, it proves your point, and it satisfies what you're trying to do. It's more credence to your cause, okay? Because you can go get a copy of the report right in the police department. I'm not trying to set you up for failure. I'm just trying to document what's going on.
So, what do you think? Was Alexa in the right?
The camera is steady. The building is in frame. And within seconds, authority arrives. Not with questions, but with commands. The first words aren't curious. They're corrective. You can't do that. And from that moment forward, the encounter takes shape around a single, unspoken assumption. That filming is a problem that needs to be stopped. But the person behind the camera doesn't stop. She doesn't apologize. She doesn't lower the lens. Instead, she asks a question that will echo through the entire interaction. What law is that? There's no immediate answer, just repetition, just insistence, just the weight of a uniform pressing against a right that doesn't bend under pressure. The setting matters. This is a federal facility, an FAA building visible from a public sidewalk. The kind of structure that exists in plain sight, surrounded by roads and parks and ordinary foot traffic. Nothing about its presence is secret. Nothing about its exterior is classified. And yet, the moment a camera points in its direction, suspicion arrives. The officer frames the concern quickly. Terrorism. The word lands heavy. It's designed to. It invokes fear, urgency, national stakes. But the woman behind the camera doesn't flinch. She asks again, calmly, directly, "What law am I breaking?" And again, there's no statute, no code, no citation, just concern, just discomfort. Just the assumption that recording, in this context, must mean something dangerous. This is the core tension of the encounter, not a legal dispute, but a cultural one. A clash between what authority expects and what the law actually allows. The woman knows the difference. She references a 2018 DHS memo, a federal document that explicitly permits photography and videography of government facilities from public spaces. It's not obscure, it's not debatable, it's written policy. And yet, the officer seems unaware of it. That gap between what's legal and what's assumed is where encounters like this unfold. The officer believes he's protecting something. The woman believes she's exercising something. And neither side is willing to yield. Watch her posture. She's not aggressive. She's not fleeing. She stands still, camera steady, voice level. Every question she asks is precise. Every response she gives is measured. She's not trying to provoke, she's trying to document. And in doing so, she's forcing the officer to justify his own actions in real time. He can't. He mentions security, he mentions patterns. He suggests she might be monitoring who enters and exits the building. But she's standing on a sidewalk. She's not inside the facility. She's not interfering with operations. She's simply watching and recording what anyone walking by could see. That distinction matters, because under law, there's no expectation of privacy in public space. If something is visible from the street, it can be photographed. If a building is open to view, it can be filmed. The camera doesn't create the exposure. It captures what's already there. The officer tries a different angle. He asks for identification. He asks for her purpose. He asks what blog she works for, what outlet she represents, what justification she can offer for standing where she stands. But she doesn't have to justify. That's the point. The First Amendment doesn't require credentials. It doesn't demand a press pass. It protects the act of recording, not the identity of the recorder, and she knows this. So she declines to answer. She declines to produce ID. She declines to explain herself to someone who has no legal authority to demand it. The officer's frustration builds. His tone sharpens. He warns her that her behavior is causing alarm inside the building. But alarm isn't a crime. Discomfort isn't probable cause. And the woman doesn't budge. She asks the question that defines the encounter: am I being detained? The officer hesitates, then answers, yes. That single word changes everything, because now the burden shifts. Now, the officer must articulate a specific, lawful reason for holding her in place, and the only reason he offers is the one that started the conversation: suspicious activity. But recording isn't suspicious. It's protected, and the woman knows it. The word detained hangs in the air. It's official now. The officer has committed to a position, and the woman with the camera is holding him to it. She asks again, for what crime? The answer comes quickly: suspicious activity. But the answer doesn't hold weight, because suspicious activity isn't a crime. It's a category, a label applied when discomfort needs a name, and the woman isn't accepting it. She presses further. She asks what specific law she's broken, what statute, what code, and the officer can't provide one. He circles back to security, to terrorism, to the idea that her presence, standing on a public sidewalk, recording a building anyone can see, might be part of something larger, but might isn't enough. Under law, detention requires more than discomfort. It requires reasonable, articulable suspicion of a specific crime, and the officer hasn't named one. The woman knows this. She doesn't argue. She simply holds the line. She asks for a sergeant. She asks for clarification. She asks whether photography alone can be used as the basis for a stop. The officer says yes, but the law says no. This is the fracture point, the moment where authority and legality begin to separate. The officer believes he's doing his job. The woman believes he's overstepping, and the camera is capturing every second. She references the DHS memo again. She points out that it requires officers to approach photographers in a polite and respectful manner. She notes that it explicitly protects the right to record federal facilities from public property. And she challenges the officer to look it up. He doesn't. Instead, he shifts tactics. He asks for her name. He asks for documentation. He suggests that if she's doing nothing wrong, she should have no problem identifying herself. But identification isn't required. Not unless she's lawfully detained for a specific crime, and the officer still hasn't named one. She declines to give her name. She declines to produce ID. And she does so calmly, without hostility, without escalation. She's not being difficult, she's being precise. And that precision is forcing the officer into a corner. He threatens trespass. He suggests that if she doesn't comply, he'll have grounds to charge her. But she's standing on a public sidewalk. She hasn't entered the facility. She hasn't crossed any boundary. The threat is empty, and she calls it out. The officer pauses. The silence stretches, and in that silence, the dynamic shifts. Another officer arrives. The tone changes slightly, less confrontational, more procedural. He reads from a book. He cites statutes. He tries to find something, anything, that might justify what's already happened. But the statutes don't apply. The definitions don't fit. The woman hasn't trespassed. She hasn't prowled. She hasn't done anything except stand still and record. The new officer acknowledges this. He notes that she was on public property. He notes that she wasn't on the facility's grounds. He notes that as long as she stays where she is, she's within her rights. That admission is quiet, but it's everything, because it confirms what the woman has been saying from the start. She wasn't breaking any law. She wasn't committing any crime. She was exercising a right and being treated like a suspect for doing so. The officers try to pivot. They ask for her name again, not as a demand but as a request. They suggest that documentation would help everyone, that it would prove she's doing nothing wrong, that it would add credence to her cause. But she doesn't need their validation. She doesn't need their approval. She's already proven her point, not by arguing, but by standing still. The officers are still present, but the energy has shifted. The confrontation has cooled. The demands have softened into requests, and the woman with the camera remains exactly where she started, on a public sidewalk, lens pointed at a building anyone can see. She hasn't moved, she hasn't conceded, and she hasn't been arrested. That outcome matters, because it proves something the officers seemed reluctant to admit. There was never a legal basis to stop her in the first place. The word terrorism was invoked. The word suspicious was repeated, but neither translated into a statute, neither produced a crime, and when pressed, calmly, persistently, without escalation, the authority that arrived with such confidence began to retreat. This is the quiet power of knowledge. Not shouting, not resisting, just asking the right questions and refusing to accept vague answers. The woman asked what law she was breaking. She asked what crime she was suspected of. She asked whether photography alone could justify detention. And each time the officer's response fell short, not because he was malicious, but because he was operating on assumption rather than law. That's the deeper issue this footage reveals. It's not about one officer or one building. It's about a pattern, a reflexive suspicion toward anyone who records, especially near sensitive facilities. And that suspicion, when left unchallenged, can override rights that are supposed to be protected. The DHS memo the woman referenced isn't obscure. It's policy. It explicitly allows photography of federal facilities from public spaces. It instructs officers to approach photographers politely, and it makes clear that the act of recording by itself is not grounds for detention. But the officer didn't know that, or if he did, he didn't apply it. That gap between written policy and street-level enforcement is where civil liberties often erode, not through dramatic crackdowns, but through small, repeated moments where rights are questioned rather than respected. The woman understood this. That's why she didn't back down. That's why she asked for a sergeant. That's why she declined to provide ID or explain her purpose. She wasn't being evasive, she was holding a line. And by holding it, she created a record, a document, a piece of footage that now exists beyond the moment it captured. That's the value of encounters like this. They don't just protect the person filming, they protect everyone who might find themselves in a similar situation. They establish precedent, they create visibility, and they remind both citizens and officers that rights aren't negotiable. The officers eventually acknowledged that she was within her rights. They noted that she was on public property. They stopped pushing for ID. And they shifted from confrontation to conversation. That shift didn't happen because they changed their minds. It happened because they ran out of options. The law was on her side. The camera was rolling. And the longer the encounter continued, the clearer that became. She didn't need to win an argument. She just needed to hold her ground. By the end, the officers are offering to document the interaction, not as a threat, but as a formality. They suggest it would prove she was doing nothing wrong. They suggest it would add weight to her position. But she doesn't need their documentation. She has her own. And that documentation now lives on, available to anyone who wants to understand what happens when authority meets knowledge, what happens when suspicion is challenged with precision, what happens when a woman on a sidewalk refuses to be moved by words that don't carry legal weight. The building is still there, the camera is still rolling, and the woman walks away, not because she was released, but because she was never lawfully held. That distinction matters more than anything else in this footage, because it proves that the First Amendment isn't just a principle. It's a shield, and when wielded correctly, it holds.